Okay, so right now we're going to look at some equations with fractions, particularly ones that end up in quadratic equations. So what is an equation with fractions? Well, basically, as you can see here, what makes something an equation is often just the presence of an equals to sign, as you can see in all of these examples here. And then you can clearly see that they all contain fractions. All right, so that's what an equation with fractions is, just something that contains an equals to sign and also contains some fractions. All right, so how do we do this? Well, let's have a look. I'm going to go and I'm going to do question 1 here for you guys. So let's put this over here. Take down the question. So we've got 1 over x is equals to 1 over x plus 3 plus 1 over 6. So here's our question. So the idea when you have equations with fractions is you're going to multiply every term by the lowest common denominator. So in this particular case, what is my lowest common denominator? Well, the lowest common denominator is the smallest expression that the denominators here divide into. So in our particular case, that's just going to be x times x plus 3 times 6. This is our lowest common denominator of our equation over here. Alright, so we're going to multiply each term by the lowest common denominator. The way I like to do that is write the lowest common denominator in kind of smaller writing above each term to show that I'm multiplying each term by the lowest common denominator. So x, x plus 3 and 6. Each of the 3 terms in the equation gets multiplied by this lowest common denominator. Alright, so what do we do here? So let's have a look at the first term. We have a 1 over x. So just let's zoom in on this 1 for a second. This 1 is being multiplied by x plus 3, and multiplied by 6, but it's also being divided by x. So it's being multiplied by x and divided by x at the same time, so those operations cancel each other out. Similar here, the x plus 3's will cancel. Similar here, the 6's will cancel. So what's my next line? Well, the first one is still to be multiplied by x plus 3 and by 6 equals the next one multiplied by x and by 6, and the next one multiplied by x and by x plus 3. So doing the multiplication, I'm actually going to take 2 lines to do multiplication. I'm going to multiply the 1 by the 6 first, and then in the next line multiply in the x plus 3. So 1 by 6 is 6, multiplied by x plus 3, is equal to 1 by x is x, multiplied by 6, plus 1 by x is x, still to be multiplied by x plus 3. So continuing on, that gives me 6x plus 18 is equals to 6x plus x squared plus 3x. So we now see that we have an x squared. So when you see an x squared, that generally means a quadratic equation. It's the highest power of x in this line. So on quadratic equations, we like to have everything on one side equals to preferably the left. So I'm going to make sure all my terms are on the left-hand side. So I've got 6x plus 18 minus 6x minus x squared minus 3x is equals to 0. So that's minus x squared minus 3x plus 18 is equals to 0 is what it all will tidy up to. Now when we're trying to solve this quadratic equation, you know, we got to be careful here with the minus in front of the x squared. I would recommend if it's an equation, so if you have your equals to sign, if it's an equation and you have a negative in front of the x squared, you should multiply the whole equation by minus 1. What that will do is just change all the signs for you. So the next line, once I do that, would be x squared plus 3x minus 18 is equals to 0. So here is the quadratic equation that I have to solve. X squared plus 3x minus 18 is equals to 0. X squared plus 3x minus 18. And this is fairly straightforward for most of you guys at this stage. So I'm just going to work through the factorizing. So factors of 18 that we need in this case are going to be 6 and 3 with a plus 6 and a minus 3. So then x plus 6 is equals to 0, or else x minus 3 is equals to 0. In this case, x will equal minus 6, and in this case, x will equal 3. So there's our two answers. X is equals to minus 6, and x is equals to 3. So just recapping over that, what we did was we had our equation, all right, and we multiplied each term by the lowest common denominator of the equation, and then we did our cancellations, and we were just very careful with our multiplying out until we got our quadratic equation and solved for our answers. So let's look at a more difficult example. Alright, a slightly more difficult example. You can see here I did question 1 where we had some nice ones, you know. It's not always going to be a 1. We also have to look at an example where you might have some more kind of terms with 2 terms below the line. So let's have a look at another example here. So what I'm going to do for you this time is I'm going to do question 9 for you. Alright, question 9, slightly more difficult example. So let's have a look at it. Alright, so what do we got? 3 over 4 minus 2 over x minus 5 equals 1 over x plus 4. Okay, so same again. I'm going to multiply each term by the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator in this case is going to be 4 by x minus 5 by x plus 4. That's my lowest common denominator, so I'm going to multiply each term by this. So the first term multiplied by 4 by x minus 5 and by x plus 4. The second term multiplied by 4 by x minus 5 and by x plus 4. And the third term multiplied by 4 by x minus 5 and by x plus 4. Alright, so let's do our cancellations, etc. So this 3, the first 3 here, once again, as you can see, has been multiplied by 4, x minus 5 and x plus 4, but also being divided by 4. So it's been multiplied and divided by 4 at the same time. So we can just cancel those. In a similar fashion, we can cancel our x minus 5s and cancel our x plus 4s. So my next line, I've got the 3 multiplied by the x minus 5 multiplied by x plus 4 minus 2 multiplied by 4 multiplied by x plus 4 equals 1 multiplied by 4 multiplied by x minus 5. Alright, so once again we'll do our multiplication. Now here is where I want to be a bit careful. Looking at this first term here when you've double brackets, you know, 2 things in this bracket, 2 things in this bracket. So I'm actually going to go to my rough work and do that multiplication out by first. So let's just have a look at our rough work here. What I want to multiply out is x minus 5 by x plus 4. So you know how to multiply out 2 brackets. You know the x gets multiplied by the x first, then by the 4, then the 5 by the x, then the 5 by the 4. That's straightforward enough. So x by x squared. X by 4 is plus 4x, minus 5 by x is minus 5x, and minus 5 by 4 minus 20. So all in all, that tidies up to x squared minus 1x minus 20. So that's important to kind of maybe go to your rough work to expand the double brackets. Just less chance of making a mistake that way, really. So all this became x squared minus 1x minus 20. So we've got 3 times x squared minus 1x minus 20 minus 2 by 4, we call that 8, times x plus 4 equals 1 by 4, 4 times x minus 5. So then, multiplying in my 3x squared minus 3x minus 60 minus 8x minus 32 is equal to 4x minus 20. Let's tidy this up a bit further. So 3x squared minus 11x minus 92, and then I'm going to bring over my minus 4x plus 20, and that's equals to 0. Tidy up a little bit further. 3x squared minus 15x minus 72 equals 0. So this is our quadratic equation. Now the one thing you'll notice in this particular equation is that each coefficient is actually divisible by 3. So because it's an equation, once again, you can multiply or divide equations by whatever you like. I'm going to take this equation and divide it by 3 just in order to simplify it. So dividing this equation by 3, I'll get x squared minus 5x minus 24 is equals to 0. So this is a simpler quadratic equation for me to solve. X squared minus 5x minus 24 is equals to 0. So my 2 brackets, x and x. Factor 24 that I'm interested in this case is going to be 8 and 3 with a minus 8 and a plus 3. So then x minus 8 is equals to 0. Our x plus 3 is equals to 0. In this case, x is equal to 8 and x is equals to minus 3.